other words, for whatever reason, that I can't give it to you, but you can't punish a person if technically he follows the orders. And the orders were to create such a table, and that's what the banishment created, that's what Earth created. But only one, or two is also. And the banishment meant that all pay. And for that, in other words, when someone does his yetzer talking, just when you ask someone to do something, and he technically did it, he's obviously did not do it. What? On the thing, you have a right technically to punish him, but you can't actually punish him. So now you have to find a secondary thing to cause this punishment. But you can't actually punish him as long as he technically followed the instructions he gave him. Then it tells us that God created two great lights, and there's going to be, they should have been two. And what happened? All of a sudden it calls in one big one and one little one. So what happened to the two big ones? So it says because the Ravana came to Rabbi Yisrael at a time, how is it it can't be the two kings to rule the world again at the same time. So therefore, one has to be small. So Rabbi Yisrael gave him, make him small. Even though technically even I gave you a good answer, why are you picking on me? It's not that I was wrong. Like you're saying normally you pick on me, you said it, okay, you do it. Okay, that's when I'm wrong in what I said. If I'm right in what I said, why are you picking on me? Why is it me? I told you the truth. It was a valid time. So the shot is this. First of all, what is the time of it?
Liz, leave it where she wants it. Where she wants it, because you are supposed to be in class. Noah, you put it wherever you want it.
Since then, if that's the case, it's two different times. So it's like two countries. You have two kings. They can always, they can get along. One country you can't get along, but two countries can get along.
For real?
So it kind of maybe it's not that, but it really is.
Correct.
Is that
I'm going to call Shana and ask her for sugar also.
That are not day and not night. That's the B'nai Shki and says oven.
You probably get it in
and that's a.
Oh, you cancel the ultra?
Those two times of the day.
Oh, I still have another day or two.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of making a cake.
So then you have either two things.
Another cup and a half.
You have the two kings, each one can control it, you have war. Or in the case that both of them will back off and you have nothing. In other words, nobody rules at that point. And that either one is a good thing for the world. That would have been in time. But it wouldn't work.
Cup and a half.
It can't work. And so
guess what?
I made him small, not only so much that he that he's a small light. He doesn't even have his own light. All he does is project from the light of the sun.
I'm so sorry. I'm like, I have no. I made an order for more than that. You should just know. I just thought I had all these things.
Benefits that come only through the moon, the tides, or other things that come in through the moon.
You first of all, you don't have to ever return things to me. When I give them to you, they're a present.
That's a care of the moon, a reflected light. So that's preferably with the sunspot.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
We have, besides Tuesday, which
most guys get
married on Tuesday.
Also here.
Everybody get married on Wednesday. And the reason why I get married on Tuesday because it says 2 times type. And that's true, but there's another day, and that's Friday.
Moshe's home, he's going to give you the sugar.
It has type, and then he says type, and I'll eat it here.
I don't understand.
It could be in Europe. See,
a lot, obviously.
Reasons, I guess, in Europe why everybody get married on a Friday. Most of the reasons were simply they had no money. So they used to make the Suda Shabbos into the Suda Shabbos. So they're able to get two things going at the same time. On the other hand, It could have been because of this reason. So you'd say maybe the Thursday night people, as I heard to this, the winter night, Thursday night people, because they were getting married on Friday. So maybe so maybe they have a special night because the Tuesday people get married at night, they get married on Wednesday. So it's usually Monday people get married at night, and it's a Tuesday. So anyway, but the custom is still to get married on Tuesday. Says the word at the end, the Yalkut says Toiv Ma'oid means Malach HaMavos. The nation created the Malach HaMavos. Why is that called Toiv Ma'oid? Because we always think the Malach HaMavos is the bad guy. He's a Satan, he's the Yitzhak. We call him a bunch of names. Why is he all of a sudden saying that, he's Toiv? The truth is, the concept of death is really a good thing.
What are we supposed to do now?
No one's died, I agree with you. But if you want to have a world that people will create,
Pack the toys and put them in.
make better than what it was, improve,
Pack them like this.
that will only be if they're challenged to be able to bring out their own cases. If everybody lives forever, so the only ones that will be in charge will be the first group. Because they're not getting, there's no reason for them to retire. So they keep adding and making delegates or whatever it is there, but no one else will go up to be the head of that group. And therefore the incentive dies in people, and they won't create. But once they have death, so that means somebody has to replace that person, and so on. Then I go to the best of my ability, be able to be the one that's going to replace. And that's the fact. You have the same thing you find in the Gemara as so certain Tanoim live very long times. I don't know what very long means, but it's long times. So the Gemara has Barabachunim Barakonet lived a long time. So first Rabbi asks him a question on Marach the Yomim, why did you live a long time? And whatever answer he gives, he then says, give me a bracha. So Rabbi Chonban gives Rabbi a bracha, you should live to half of my life. So that's all. What kind of bracha is that? Why would you again? He said, because you have children that are waiting to take over your place. Normally a person can go out and do his own stuff. He doesn't have to replace anybody. But once you're in a position like a Nasi, where his job is hereditary, therefore
they just came
for the next and we find that there's a problem existing for Hasidus, a lot of it. It's a Rebbe's Einikel that becomes the next Rebbe, not the Rebbe's kid. Because the kid is already 60 years old, 70 years old when the father's a first time. So that's the time he's already past the throne. Because the Einikel is 40 years old. Okay.
Everything is arranged perfectly in this house.
He's got 30, 40 years ahead of him. About the one that's the son doesn't have much in them, so the son usually will have to find something else to do to be able to find his mark in the world. And therefore, this is you have this problem of what he hereditary. But the thing when there's a position involved is people when in the First World War made a big part of it was the fact that Edward didn't become king as early as William and the Nicholas, because they were all first cousins, and Athol became their kings, and he's only a prince, and that bothered him to a big degree. That there was sin in the Munda. Now the Danish, when he made the world, he tells them you can eat these fruits, you can eat this. That time everybody was vegetarians. I assume that the fruits were able to produce a perfect protein through all 6 amino acids. That I don't know because as far as I know, no actual growth, beans, whatever, chemicals, whatever they use to get a protein, they're not perfect proteins. They only have as much as 5 amino acids. Because of that, they don't really give you the keach that protein is supposed to give you. And that only comes from actual animal products. Whether it's meat itself, from milk, even eggs, but it has to be from animal products to get protein. So it could be that kind of mention made that the vegetables gave it, or that the person did not need all 6 amino acids from it too. I have no idea. The mention could make anybody want. But anyway, originally they were not able to eat. So therefore he made fruit, grass and food, whatever it is, everything to eat. I assume, like we have all the parents, we make a bracha on the parents, right? That it's a good tasty fruit. I like it. I like a peach. I like a good apple also. Like a lot of things I like, right? So that's what we make the brachas on. When we see Ilonis, you make the bracha, you mention made them, what we call a hands b'nei Adam. He wants people to feel good and feel good. Why would he do that? To make it that you have to eat because, like, you couldn't live without eating. And it seems in during the Middle Ages, what was really considered meat meals, and we were very poor. Probably still very poor in Russia and so on. But in the Middle Ages, they used to eat hard bread and ale. And what was the purpose of ale? Not just to give a little shitkus into the bread. The bread was hard as a rock, so they had to put it into the ale to soak it up and soften it up. Then it was that. That was a meal, and we were thankful for that meal. Because you ate. Your body was hungry. You needed food. And they didn't have any big taste differences that they moved on, so they didn't have maybe about candy and stuff like that. So they were satisfied with that. But they needed that food. Not to say that was tasty. On the other hand, fruits are very tasty. Even vegetables are very tasty. So the Rebbeinu made these things that people should want to eat. Why should you want to eat? Because you have to be healthy. And if you have no time in what you're eating, then you get it, then simply don't taste it. You don't feel like eating. The only time you think about eating is when also your body is going hot. And therefore, I must have food. But until that time, you wouldn't get them to eat. So the Rebbeinu made it that it's tasty. He also made it that you get hungry. In other words, that the reason that you eat is to keep yourself healthy. Well, how do you get healthy? By eating, staying alive. That donation made you get hungry in order that you won't forget about staying alive. Same thing, he made the big Yetzer in marriage. And that's not when the Yetzer comes, but I meant that Yetzer. So obviously the Danish made it so there'll be procreation in the real world. You don't have that Yetzer. There isn't any procreation. So I would think that as far as food, let's go first. That food, the Ramban, all the Bali Musa, they all speak about you should not eat because I'm hungry. You eat because I'm going to serve my Creator, and my Creator requires I eat X amount of different types of foods, and whether they're sweet, not sweet, or doesn't, that's what the Rambam puts it on. That I shouldn't eat food just because they're sweet or not sweet. I should eat it because I have to eat it and make healthy. And that's the way you should live, and that way. And then ever since that's over Yaakov, and the Rebbeinu told him that I want you to, that's the way you should live. And the Rebbe said, I don't know if I can do it. He says, I can come back to Shalom, then I'll accept this concept of God as the Kiddush. That's over Yaakov that we talk about Chumash Shiur. So this is so we have this thing, and yet you put a thing you should know to eat. So one of the problems by making so good tasting, who have that problem. That, you have that day to holiday. What do you do? How do you do it? I would think that when he made it to taste good, that we have to work on it. So that takes away it. That makes us servant of Kodesh Baruch Hu. But the fact that we're able to control our desires and the Yitzhak, and the Yitzhak, it's important for the world, but our desires should be able to be curtailed. But that makes us holy, that's what makes us everything else. We're limited in certain things, and that makes us Kedusha.
Maybe.
That's Kedusha.
Because I can't pour into the power thing without mixing with the local thing yet.
What do you mean?
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you, it could be, there are families that make cereals, for instance, sweet cereals. They call them Shabbos cereals. We only give it on Shabbos. We only give soda on Shabbos. It's very nice. I don't know if you have to keep your kid away from eating these things or not. But each person has his own decision. How he wants to raise his kids, and he wants to bring out this concept that Shabbos is better, is important. But what are you saying? I'm saying that I'm making Shabbos better in food because I want you to wait for Shabbos. I want you to want Shabbos. We celebrate things. Why do we celebrate them? What do we celebrate with? Food. Why do we celebrate with food? Because we want these things to happen again and again and again. So how does that fit in then with what we just said before? That you're not supposed to eat things just for something.
Pan.
And that's the way that the whole point of waiting for it is because it tastes better. In that case, that's not a chesed, because it makes the mitzvah want to do the mitzvah. One even say a shot in the mission in others. The Mishnah says over there, if there's three on the table, they don't say the word Tevet. On the other hand, if you did, he ate from Shulchan Hashem, or Hashem, which means by Kutchin. Three guys ate there. Now, Kutchin is a very funny thing. Kutchin has no limit how much you eat. You find in the Gemara, I forgot his name, that when he was alive, there was no Meisel Beis HaMikdash. The gates of Beis HaMikdash was to sing when he came, because he's coming to eat up all the Meisel. There's no Meisel. How much did he have to eat? How was he able to eat it? That I don't know, and I have no answer to that. But when I said, obviously, he ate it. And I assume that it still went down easy, because when it didn't go down easy, then it's not done in the Nachila. So he ate it and enjoyed it. So the point of why do you eat things that you need? Because God gave you food to serve Him. So to reach a high madrega, that's the only reason I should eat, not because I'm hungry. I should eat to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The bench also gave us a Torah too. If we learn and speak Torah on it, then there's a reason why we're eating. We're eating because that way we stay three guys together so we can talk and learning. That's so important that you can eat whatever you want. Just like Kutchin, you can eat whatever you want. As long as it fits in with obviously the korbanos, but that's what you can eat, anything you want. And that's the point that I say. As long as it fits in Leila Hasan, I can make a big chassan of different types of foods, because when they go make siyum, what they serve at the siyum, obviously it's a big deal. They serve at the siyum because I want to make another siyum. So therefore, things that cause mitzvahs, cause matzah Shabbos, I make Shabbos. So I don't wait for Shabbos a whole week because we're gonna have special foods on Shabbos. That is an important thing. So therefore, it's not because we want the food. We want the mitzvah. We're looking forward to the mitzvah which gets us food. And that's what it's.
They add about Crandall. They add about 50 cents each
Each thing.
He texted me that the person's name was Yochanan Ben Rabbi.
Huh?
But he just texted me
Is this
that
per bag of sugar?
Huh?
What do you say?
They add 50 cents per item.
That's ridiculous. So for things like
Anything that's $3.99 is $4.39 or 40 cents, whatever.
that's a big ad.
Yeah.
10%.
This is called the Shemot Torah. I want to tell you a story which happened to me
Oh,
when I was in Paris
you're not desperate for sugar right now.
a long time ago.
I need to take a few minute break to get off my feet.
But they used to have the dinners of the yeshiva was in the basement. You understand? It was in Cleveland alone. But they used to get a donor in restaurant from New York sometimes. Particularly that year they got one. Yeshiva Bacham when I invited. I was invited simply because my cousin was, because his father raised his money for the yeshiva. So he was invited. He was all in Toledo. And he was invited, so I guess they gave me a ticket too. So I sat there, and like Yeshiva Bacham, don't really understand what's happening in the world. We see this honoring this balabas, and we say, they have covered, look what they got to give. So we're making fun of covered. And then he got up to tell us that
You're wet? Why are you wet?
Flying that time with the color plane about 3 or 4 stops going
Why are you
from
wet?
New York to Cleveland. It's out.
You're not getting a bath
40
yet.
minutes.
Did you spill your water?
He had 3 or 4 stops. And he said, I really had
It's gonna make you
103
wet.
people.
What made you
I
wet?
thought it was important to come anyway, because I think it's an important union.
What made you
And
wet?
everyone said, especially Mina Bachim, said, he said, it's nefesh for covered. And, okay, so justified in our minds, I come home from Ben Asmanim, and I tell him, my father was Shiur Zatzal, I tell him what happened, and he was giving me a shikeach, realize what's important about that. He says, I'm going to tell you why it's important, why we give cover to Reveal, who takes on himself
It's a
to
winky.
cover a Cuban nation.
It's an old dirty one.
He says, if they would give this money to college,
It's an icky one. It's the one in the garbage.
library,
Why did someone
he would meet more important donors and patrons than a meet through yeshiva.
Probably dropped it and weren't paying
And
attention.
it would help him in business, it would help him in other things. He would get a name from reputation for himself in the, what you call the elite circles. And so, why is he giving it to the yeshiva? Because to him, the only covet he wants is from the Torah. Goyim giving him covet, or Yidden giving him covet, doesn't impress him at all. It's not coveted. Therefore, doesn't want it. I only want that covet that comes from Torah. You got to think about it yourself.
Lisa,
First, everybody wants a little
are
bit
you
of
going
covet.
back to class?
Why don't you want it from the
Please go
Torah?
back to class.
I don't care where it
No,
comes.
they're talking.
That's a very important thing for Bainishan then talks about a little bit out of no, something the same thing, because they came before the amazing the Asa connector, he made an Asa connector. Now, whether they were actually two people attached to each other, back and forth, or whatever it means. Because things that's the Ikab shot, that the original two, and that's shot when we say that a chassan is always looking for his aveda. That's why it's Bishmi Kaddish, said, because he has to go look for the aveda will go looking for him. And because of that, what he called, I don't know, whatever they become one again. Ultimately, the Mabah, even here, to a certain extent. And we become one. What does that mean, become one? That we work together. That's what it means. A woman is the Eza Kenegdai of a man. Even though Rashi says Zocha Eza or Zocha Kenegdai, that's not what it says in the Torah. The Torah says that Adam didn't find an Eza Kenegda. He was looking for an Eza Kenegda. And God said, I'm going to make him an Eza Kenegda. What he did was he made someone that had the same ideals as him. And therefore, if he's Zoichedo, when he wants to do good, she'll help him. And he wants to do bad, she will oppose him. On the other hand, he's not Zoichedo. If he wants to do good, she will oppose him. If he wants to do bad, she will help him. So that's the difference what it means, Zocha and Zocha. But as far as the woman itself, the man is an Eza Kenegda. She is someone that's going to argue with him. Going to argue with him maybe constantly about what he does and what he writes and all these things. And that's basically it. So the Nation made this relationship between husband and wife one that can grow into Emes Ahava. We understand Ahava. Not that there's two Ahavas we don't understand. There's Ahava, I love chicken, meaning I want to eat it. And there's a different, I love chickens, so I don't eat them. Right? So therefore those two different definitions. So when you say I love in the sense of love, I mean I'm doing for you. So what I'm doing with when I'm doing for my wife, I get into the relationships between husband and wife. It's that the husband wants to please the wife. And that's the one that each one wants to be a giver. That's what's called love. And that point of leading to love, then it's a point that you can understand what is the good part of the thing and what is created, that we're able to create things in the world. That because we're one, we act as one. Years ago it was obvious like that, because when he had a love and the women generally didn't work, they were together with the husband, they always helped the husband. So let's take a picture of the love and the Rebbetzin. We all understood that in most cases, and I can't even say most cases, in some cases, the love, the Rebbetzin was the Rebbetzin because the husband was the love. But we all know that in all those cases, that the reason the love was the love was because the Rebbetzin was the Rebbetzin. That's the reason we the love. So we understand that it's one, they always acted as one, they're one team.
No.
And now we have different professions, different verticals, thing there. But again, like Michaela, I would say that's also one, no matter what the woman does, because our purpose is like the husband be able to win. So the tachlis is learning, and then the question is, how does he do that? So if someone has to give money, so they make money. So that's one clearest that they both do. That's the Eitz Hadas. That's a strange thing, we all know. What does it mean in there? The Chochmah, the knowledge thing, what knowledge did he get from it, and so on. One time like this, the Shiva, the first, a simple chat of the Eitz Hadas. The Shiva says this, that every time Adam Arisha would pass the Eitz Hadas, he would look at it and say, you know, that fruit looks good. I probably would like to eat it, I probably would like it. You can't really say every Eitz Hara to eat it, because you pass Chinatown all the time. You have to go and buy all the fruits they have there. But all these fruits we have on Rosh Hashanah, does anybody buy them the rest of the year? Because they like to taste it. But even buy it on Rosh Hashanah. When was the last time someone ate a recipient, a papaya? These are available all the time, not only in Chinese stores. What do you call it? Dragon fruit juice. I don't eat it. There's a Rishalmi that says you mechayiv to eat all the fruits once a year, at least, to appreciate it. I thought you don't have a Yitzhak for it. You have it down. You guys exactly Shafiyono on Rosh Hashanah, and it brings you peace. Maybe you'll take a bite just to see how it tastes. But there's no Yitzhak. So until he ate from the Yitzhak Das, there was no Yitzhak. Right? So what do you mean it was taken when I looked good? Meaning there's no reason I don't eat it. And therefore, just like I had to taste the peach first because I had to bite it first before I knew what it tasted like. So the same thing here. If I would have tasted it, I know what it tastes like. So why didn't you do it? Because God said no. That part, you remember, there's always a boss in the world. Someone controls the world. We don't have that anymore, obviously, in Eitz Hadas, but we do have an Eitz Hadas. We have a chazal in the world. The goyim love chazal, right? They eat pork all the time. It's a big meichel by that. Why don't we? In fact, that's one of the times they even have to us who believe in God. And God created a food that can, an animal that can hold that whole tachlis to be eaten. It has no other purpose except to be eaten. So why don't you eat it? You see that God created it, that's made it for eating, so why aren't you eating it? Because God said no. So that reminds us always that there's a rebellion in the world. That we don't do certain things because he said no. For the Goyim, he didn't say no. So we can do whatever he wants. So he said no. So how do we learn about the Yetzer Hara, and the Fnim Yetzer Hara, the Chutzah? I don't know what these things mean. The one thing I think he didn't know, he didn't understand, the Tetra, mind the moving talker. Now that we are used to our days and used to tell the kid, no, don't eat the cookie, right? What the kid going to do is going to eat the cookie, right? You'll have to give it a patch or something, but that's the thing, that's really, whatever tastes good and you don't want, we'll sneak it out, we'll eat it. Because, mind you, look in your talking. The cookie tastes twice as good to him than it does to you. Because it tastes good as a cookie, and also he has that extra thrill that he has in mind giving. So until he ate it, he had no hasod mind giving. But after he ate it, and he saw that extra thrill, then he understood mind giving. But because that extra thrill only really exists at one time, because every time you eat it, you do the same avera as that doesn't seem to be the thrill anymore, doesn't it? For that reason, it will never taste the same again as it did the first time. The chet will always taste the best the first time, and after that it always goes down and not like it. And therefore a person doesn't really appreciate it. It couldn't possibly be true. At the same time, when the Torah came to our Kodesh Baruch Hu, he gave you to eat this and so on. So Adam said, Elisha Shenasati, the woman you gave to me. Now it's your fault, God. You gave it to me. Okay? Now, is that really true? Why did the Rebbeinu give him a wife? Because when he's a connector, he didn't have one and wanted one. He gave him one. So now you're taking this gift that God gave you and you're blaming him, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu for giving you the gift, because that's what Jesus said. That's a kind of, another musician, that's a terrible thing. On the other hand, you see somehow, nobody forced the musician to eat from the Eitz Hadas. Assuming she even gave it to him. If she didn't tell him it's from the Eitz Hadas, or he didn't know, she mixed it into the cereal or whatever, she mixed it in. They had to that they were punished because they didn't know what they were doing. And there was no what doing unless the need to say. Now it doesn't know what's good for it and not good for it, so you shouldn't have eaten for the balance. Could be. I don't know. So why did he eat? But the man definitely should have known that he's not supposed to eat from the balance. So it's really his own fault. So why Taka did he eat from the balance? Like we said, he had no real Yitzhak for it. And she gave it to him. He knows what the consequences are. And she's telling him the Bubmeister that Nochish pushed me to the tree and I didn't die, and all this thing. Hey, he knows that's not true. I mean, that's true, that's what happened, that he believes. But that this is what it meant, and you're supposed to die immediately, and just touching it was enough. That he knew was not what God said. So therefore, why did he eat from? So obviously he understood himself that the way to create the world, as it we said, the incentive of the world and everything else, is that there has to be death in the world. And therefore he ate the Yitzhadas. If it was one like this, maybe he wouldn't have eaten it. If it was my wife told me that I'm not going to go die myself. Whatever it is there. Although Lamaisa, since my wife already ate it, but she ate it on purpose, so then I'll go along with it. So they ate for the Yitzhadas. To explain another time, maybe when we're at a benishim, we'll call like hiding from the benishim. How's that possible? That's not for now. We're close to the end. Yeah, so basically that is it. On the other hand, I would think that Cain and Hevel did not eat from the Yitzhadas. Why would they not have eaten from the Yitzhadas? Because why would Chava given it? It says Rashi brings down, why did he give Adam to eat it? Because she was jealous that she dies and Adam lives, that Adam will marry somebody else, that father. So she wanted Adam to die too. But her children, she wanted her children to die. So Cain and Hevel, she probably didn't give it to them. So if they didn't give it to Cain and Hevel, why did they die? Well, okay, Cain, maybe death already was brought into the world, so you were able to kill. But Cain, that's how Hevel died. But how did Cain die? So the Taki is a medrash. There's two different medrashim. One is that Lemech killed him. Whatever it is there, so that means that 7 generations, the 7th generation will kill him. And there's a Rashi in the end of the Seder that there's a medrash that Cain died in the mountain. And this Cain was the longest living human being ever. Lived all the years until about the 1600 something years. So that's the case. That means he didn't die. There was no death there. And it seems also that we see, Rashi himself says that, because when he tells you that about the Chafleim of the Deiros, the Anshe Hashem, so he says, who are the Anshe Hashem? Yoya and Tzipurya, all the children of Cain. So much they must be around, even when he brought them out. So that's a long, long time. Chase's children all died out. I mean, the only one that was left in the end was Noach. I mean, they also, but the meaning that they had regular death. And so on, 500 years, 1,000 years, they were known with that, with Shushelach. But he covered it. And Cain. So you have, not quite. Okay. So that's all I want to say. That's why he didn't die, because what goes on.
Daddy?
I want to talk about the earth. Rashi brings down by when he created the Shemayim, the Shemesh V'Yaleach. He made light in the daytime and nights. He says it's all after Sheva by Parashas. But doing the 7 days of Bereshis, then it was the sun, the Erhad that he created originally was there 24 hours a day, every day. So I mean, I don't understand that Rishon was the Erhad, was the Baikya. So obviously you're talking about this, the light there. I mean, these are things that need explanation and inspiration to understand it. But basically, you see that it's not day or night. That's not so much that. By the poles, there's also day and night, but it's not there until for 6 months of day and 6 months of night. But the idea is, you can see the sun does go around. It does have shade when it goes to this side and then goes to the other side. So the sun is still going around. So therefore, that's what makes it day. So the day doesn't change. It's light and this one's dark. And what does it really mean if you had light and dark? He said they both ruled at the same time, that they were both there the whole time. That's what she says over there by the Irish. That they're always there 24 hours. So that's not day around. If it means they were together, so that means it was always twilight. That doesn't make sense either. 24 hours of twilight. Not this on this. So Shiva that tells us and this is that day is made to create work, so on. Like birds, they wake up with the light, they go to sleep in the start. And that's really how people used to do also. The night was made for sleeping, day was made for working, accomplishing. You can say, what do you do when it's 18 hours at night or 18 hours a day? But obviously they did work. And the Gemara brings down that you worked in the fields, Bechilki or whatever it is, you couldn't talk even. But they have to bench. Can they bench a regular benching? Can they have a regular shmanes if they play over and so on? Because you're being hired out from sunrise to sunset. Not even straight up late without rest.
I was told that you told her
She had a snack. Right.
But
Give
10 o'clock.
Give her another one.
She also has a bag of cookies and snack.
So obviously,
And your job.
day and night.
One more. Are you done with your cookie snack? I forgot to buy snack bags for you.
And yet it says they were both there the whole time. So she was that person had a choice.
Now when
To
you
be
turn
a
it
guy that's
on, the
always
light flashes for a second.
constantly working.
It's getting a drop.
Therefore, you went from one
Tiny,
to the other.
tiny job, yeah.
Always without the light. And then there's one that was lazy, and he would always seek out the dark. And that's a person has to figure in himself. That's when they say a person is, how do you call it, as depressed, he always goes to sleep. He sleeps a lot. Right? The depression. Why? It's an escape. So you look for an escape place. Goes from night to night to night. It's an escape. Person goes, otherwise he's a workaholic. And so on, he goes from light to light.
I guess I'll see you on Shabbos.
And that's the thing, but neither one is the correct way. You're supposed to have light and day. Supposed to have. Another point just to think about is that Shiva pointed out to me, we have a week. Week is 7 days. Month, 29 and a half days, and X amount of chalakim. A sun year, 365 and a quarter days minus 12 minutes. Right? We have a cycle. Then there's a cycle. And therefore, when we say many years ago, many seasons ago, we're talking about things that actually took place. When he said many months ago, many moons ago, means it was away with many cycles of the moon. So those were countable. What made a week 7 days? He said, the So the whole concept of a week came from B'Yisrael. Not there's a change from one day to the next day. You know what I'm saying?
Bring it to me, Noah.
A Banisha made between 7 days. And in those 7 days, a person should rest 1 day. And that doesn't even mean a good year or a good, because that was Moshe's time at the Pali. You know, the workers need a day off, otherwise they can't produce the other 6 days. You're just going to knock them out. So therefore, like the Germans did, the slave labor until they killed them, and then took more slave laborers. That's what's going to happen. But you want them to live, you want them to keep doing work, so you have to give them a day off. Give them Shabbos. Under no Shabbat. That's why we keep Shabbos in Mitzrayim. But basically, that's the good time. Anyway, there's a lot more in this circle. And have a good Shabbos and a good year, healthy.
Okay, good Shabbos, good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos.
Shabbos, Rabbi.
Shabbos.
Shabbos.
Shabbos, Rebbe. Shabbos, Rebbe.
Okay. Maybe we should try to charge it when it's on. Like, leave it on.
You could try it.